Now I'm going to put a trigger warning on this one for sexual assault survivors. I have to do that, but we have to talk about this. This story cannot go away. You cannot let it go away. And I'm going to try to get through it as quickly as I can while doing it justice. I'm not trying to do it for not wanting to get the details out there. But frankly, there are people who are writing this who are doing a better job than we will ever do explaining it. So we're going to give you the top line. So Ben Pope talked about how there was Ben Pope, by the way, Ben Pope CST works for the Chicago Sun-Times and is part of the PWHPA, just so you know. There is a new amended version of the John Doe 1 versus Blackhawks lawsuit that provides significant details about Brad Aldridge's 2010 assault. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it. John Doe was at Aldridge's. Sorry, I almost started on the wrong section here. I just want to make sure I got it right. Yeah, number 6. John Doe, who is obviously the plaintiff, was at Aldridge's apartment for coaching advice. Aldridge turned on pornography and began to pleasure himself in front of the plaintiff. John Doe attempted to leave Aldridge's apartment, but Aldridge blocked the exit from the apartment, grabbed a souvenir Cubs baseball bat from his wall, and physically threatened the plaintiff with a small bat. While brandishing the bat, John Doe, Aldridge verbally threatened plaintiff by stating that plaintiff would never play in the NHL if plaintiff did not engage in non-consensual sexual activity with Aldridge at that time. Aldridge verbally threatened plaintiff by stating that Aldridge would ruin plaintiff financially and destroy his career if plaintiff did not engage in non-consensual activity, which with Aldridge at that time. After physically and verbally threatening the plaintiff, Aldridge exposed himself. Aldridge engaged in consensual sexual activity with John Doe, including masturbation, forcible touching, and other lewd and lascivious acts until Aldridge ejaculated on plaintiff while plaintiff was paralyzed with fear. Now, that is, I mean, there's no words to describe that. The amended lawsuit also alleges that Aldridge repeatedly invited young interns working for the Blackhawks to his private apartment before the alleged assault, and Hawks employees were aware of this behavior and found it to be quite unusual, which, by the way, was backed up by that marketing source, I believe, that Rick Westhead had. Remember, he talked to somebody in marketing?
I remember this.
And then the amended lawsuit also alleges that the Blackhawks player experienced homophobic trash talking for years afterwards in practices and scrimmages, supervised by the Hawks coaches. Now, this one's big, guys. I'm going to read the amendment. This is Amendment 25. Plaintiff was subjected to humiliating trash talking by his teammates during scrimmages where coaches were present. Defendant, the Blackhawks, through its agents, permitted its players to repeatedly harass plaintiff by calling him the F word, not the F-U-C-K word, the other one, asking if he couldn't focus because he wanted to suck someone off, and commenting that he should go suck a D, among other similar harassing statements. Now, and then also a part of this was that the primary challenge is alleging the Blackhawks provided a positive review and or employment verification of Aldridge specifically to Houghton High School, where he went on to work. And I believe at that point, he went on to work at University of Miami in Michigan, and there was a whole bunch of other things, but he is a registered sex offender now. And the whole question is, did the Blackhawks issue this man a positive recommendation? Now, if you don't mind, I talked to a lawyer about this, and they basically told me that anytime, and this is somebody that's not really familiar with the case, but anytime that there is a major power imbalance, you open your organization, or in this case of the NHL, a group of organizations, up to misconduct and abuse, be that sexual, physical, mental, whatever it is. Just whenever there's a power imbalance, that's what happens. And that's why in a lot of organizations, you have HR departments. And basically, I mentioned to this person that Aldridge's dad worked for San Jose. And
still does, I believe.
Still does. And they said, if Aldridge, I believe, worked for San Jose as well under Ron Wilson. And what would have exposed him to is the inner workings of how much power coaches have over players. I'm not talking about superstar players here. The chances of a coach having much pull over a superstar player is pretty slim. But we're talking about guys who are just trying to make their dream happen. just trying to get into the league, just trying to get that 900 grand or or your 786 or whatever it is, just trying to get in that NHL paycheck. And people in power usually use pre-existing systems to exploit their position to get what they want. So he would have had a front row seat to how that all worked. And, you can see that in the allegations of "I'll ruin you." How many times did we see that with the Catholic Church? Don't tell anyone or you'll be in big trouble. That's prime abuser language right there.
Mike Aldrich, by the way, has been the head equipment manager of the San Jose Sharks since 1995.
Shit.
According to EliteProspects.com.
So I would like to know what the Sharks knew as well. Like, I think maybe it's worth peeling it back all the way. It's surprising that the NHL and the Hawks, according to this lawyer, didn't put a lid on this thing. Because what you normally do in these situations is you pay the person off, you put everyone under your NDA, you put all their family members under NDA, and you never hear about it again. Now, they might have tried that and it didn't work, or the player wouldn't do it. But the issue is Rick Westhead reported that now the NHL has not and will not commit, and neither will the Blackhawks, to making these findings public. So they have their third-party investigation going, but they're not committing to saying, we're going to make this public. If this was a school, you'd have to make the findings public, but the NHL is reserving its right not to do that. The problem is that will shake anybody's, that will shake the brand, and that's where you get Rogers and ESPN and TNT, and they're all looking at this like this makes us look bad too, because we're partners with you, right? And all the corporate partners, Rick Westhead called every single one of them. Nobody would return his call. And he asked them about why you work with the Blackhawks. Are you aware of these allegations? Do you have anything to say?
Rick Westhead is the opposite of messing around, by the way.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just the sponsors.
And I finally asked this lawyer, what were the chances that this has never happened before? And they said close to zero. It's very likely that they've had similar situations in the past and either settled and NDA'd or bullied the victims into silence, or and this is maybe more likely the case, a lot of times victims won't come forward. Now, the Me Too movement's changed some of that, and that was mostly for women, but for men as well. They said that men have trouble coming forward in sexual assault cases because it's so emasculating. And let's rewind back to the Hawks players, the allegation about the Hawks players. You can't focus because you're thinking of some guy's dick or whatever it is. It's a little bit scary, a lot scary. And it's big of this person to come forward, but it also makes me question, who was the Hawks leadership at that time? Who were the Hawks coaches at that time? And you have Joel Quenneville's name. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, like if we're talking about, Cheveldayoff said in a statement, I think yesterday, didn't know about it. Player personnel, Marc Bergevin, head of player personnel, did not know about it. Stan Bowman knew about it because a meeting evidently took place. That's the allegation.
All those people should be fired. And not even just fired.
From their current position.
From their current position, then suspended from being in the National Hockey League forever. That's just you. And you should go as far as the Wirtz family should be in trouble for they might have to sell this team. To the point of how is this thing going on within your organization? You shouldn't have your play toy anymore. This should be over. This is absolutely horrific. Everybody involved should be fired from their current position, not allowed to play in the National Hockey League anymore. It's ridiculous.
And I agree with that, Jesse. And so here's the last question, the last piece. If that is the case for Cheveldayoff, Bergevin, and Stan Bowman, what do you then say about the guy who was on the ice as the head of this team? That would be Joel Quenneville. That would be Stanley Cup winning Hall of Fame. Well, this is the thing, right?
Take him out of the Hall of Fame.
And that's what I'm saying. Is okay, because Bowman is a big name in hockey. We know that, right?
Yep.
Quenneville, big name in hockey, player and coach. Bergevin, also a player and coach, a player and GM. Cheveldayoff, doing well in Winnipeg. These are, it seems like at least that there's protection going on, like the NHL is closing in on protecting the wrong people. If you manage and you oversee this, I mean, maybe, I don't know what argument could be made to defend anybody on the Hawks coaching staff that year. Because clearly they had to have heard that. And then let's talk about the players. The only players who have spoken up and said anything are players that have retired. Sopel and Boynton.
Anybody with no skin in the game is speaking honestly.
And I think did Dan Carcillo speak up on it too?
I believe he did, yeah.
Okay. So that's 3. But Duncan Keith, Jonathan Toews, Brent Seabrook, Patrick Kane, Corey Crawford.
No, not Crawford. Crawford was on there? No, he was on 2013.
Okay, sorry, that would have been Niemi.
Yeah.
Right? Their goalie was Niemi that year. Okay. But okay, Toews, just say Toews and Kane, captain and assistant in Chicago right now. Bowman, GM in Chicago right now. It's very unlikely that anything goes back on the players, but you do have to wonder, like, what is the culture in the NHL if that's the reaction?
If you're complicit in like a sexual assault case and you knew something happened and like you allowed some of that to occur, then you don't get to be a part of an entertainment product anymore. Like you don't get to have your career in the Fun Factory. You're out. Like that's crazy.
Well, and you know, I hate to say it, but the Oilers just spent big assets on Duncan Keith. What's Duncan got to say about that? He obviously had to have known.
This is what did or didn't happen is interesting, and we're still learning details. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to specifics, you know, there is perhaps plausible deniability. But whenever someone says something like, I didn't know at all, I don't believe them.
Right.
I don't believe
Leddy
them.
Thing, I can believe Nick Leddy because Nick Leddy wasn't there until the next year. I can believe that's believable enough. But even then, rumors get around, right?
It's still hard for me to believe, but it is more believable than someone who was there on that team. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's the NHL. There's only like 800 guys. It's not a lot. It spreads. And let's also not forget a bunch of guys from that team. That was the Hawks team that they had to blow up. Right? Because there were some weird over the cap issues.
Was that there was Chris Versteeg and Dave Bolin trades to Toronto in consecutive years or whatever it was? Versteeg was
Versteeg was 2010, came to Toronto. Boland, I think, was 2013, came to Toronto. But they dealt Versteeg. They also dealt Ladd. They dealt Bufflin. They blew that team up proper. They had to get rid of a lot of guys.
It's a tough look. And we'll continue to follow it. I hope you continue to watch it. Follow at Ben Pope CST. Follow by Scott Powers. Follow Rick Westhead. I know there's names I'm missing here. Katie Strang. Yeah, these are the people that are going to give you the story on it. Thankfully, media outlets are actually covering it now. And
Mark Lazarus.
Mark Lazarus is great too. Yeah, great Chicago reporters there.